Hey, come on in. Today I'm going to answer all the Ask Me Anything questions. Let's go. Hey, how's it going? Anthony Ferraro here, Create Sci-Fi. Well, today is a little different video. I'm excited about it. Today I'm going to answer all your questions, right? I did an AMA, Ask Me Anything. I posted on YouTube, in a video, in the community tab, also on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. And so I compiled all your questions, and I'm gonna just jump right into it. The only thing I'll mention before we get started is, just in compiling these, I noticed a lot of your questions, I may have already done a video on it, but it might be way back in the catalog. So what I think I'll do is, anytime I mention a video, because there's too many to link in the pop-up link, anytime I mention something, answering a question that pertains to a video that I've already done, I'll do a time code list in the description of this video. So, you know, whatever the video it is, you know, when I mention it, you can look for that time code. And then I'll have a link to that, right? So, and thank you very much. You know, I was apprehensive at first because you don't know. It's like, you know, I do this in a bubble, right? I do it in my home studio. I get comments, but you don't know if people care, if they're paying attention. I sense that you did. So, yeah, just all really great questions. I was very pleased, so thank you very much for that. And okay, let's get started. Plextra asks, what got you started in making? Do you have a favorite film prop? Is there a dream project that you haven't been able to work on yet, but hope to be soon? So what got me started in making is I was just a very sort of active kid, you know, like model kits, and if I had a bicycle, I would take it apart and put it back together. And I think what got me started in making was just sort of having an idea of something I wanted, and just thinking, well, if I can't purchase that or get it, I'm just gonna make it, right? You know, making, you know, knight armor out of cardboard and tinfoil, or taking apart my bicycle and painting it, you know, because I wanted it to be blue and it was maybe yellow, right? So that's what got me into making. And then later on, when I got into theater, that's where it all started for me. Then I would start to make costumes and props, and then it kind of clicked for me. Favorite film prop? You know, the next one, right? I'm very excited about the next thing that I'm making. And then dream project that I haven't been able to make yet. I just hope to one day be able to create a series or a film that's a world that will keep feeding itself, right? Where, you know, we'll just continue telling the story, right? A trilogy, or like, you know, 5 years of a series. Great question. Firestone 07. Will there be a Blade Run inspired build? Well, a few builds back, I did a blaster. I 3D printed it, and that was inspired by Blade Runner. I'm kind of always inspired by Blade Runner and aliens, so I don't know if there'll be a specific Blade Runner piece, but, you know, I'm always using those films as a touchstone. The Macabre Gamer. Hey, Anthony, what's the biggest issue you have when filming your movies? Well, I mean, money is like the obvious one, right? But the biggest issue when filming movies is, I find, especially on a no budget, micro budget, low budget, is scheduling, right? So when you're not paying people a premium and they're basically doing you favors, it's like, oh, okay, the DP said he'll do it for the amount of money you have. It's not his rate, but he believes in the project, but he can only do it on these days. Great. Oh, that location, you can get it for free, but it's only on these days. Different than the DP's days with the actor, and so on and so forth. So that always happens, and that's probably the most difficult thing. Robot Burb? What's your favorite material to work with? What kind of things inspire you to create? Actually, it'd be surprising to you, but probably my favorite material to work with is leather. And then the kinds of things that inspire me to create are usually objects, right? Like details, objects in a world where I get inspired by, like, you know, if I'm in a department store and I see some kind of toothbrush device, right, like a sonic toothbrush, and they're on sale because it's some off-brand, but I'm like, oh, the shape of that, oh, that could be like a really cool like medical instrument on a spaceship. So that kind of thing definitely inspires me. AP Stevens, shout out to AP. AP's been following me for a long time. If you could take any sci-fi character or prop from any franchise and put them in one of your web series or short films, what would it be? Well, I kind of did that in Galactic Galaxy. The main heavy in Galactic Galaxy, the Dark Hussar, is actually from the Guild, right? So Jeff Lewis from the Guild is in my web series. So yeah, that was pretty cool. Frank Tedder, what was the first piece you felt most accomplished from? Well, recently would be AERANGER, which is available on my channel, but probably further back than that, probably more than 15 years ago, I did a series of clown films, right? These black and white clown films in New York City, shot on Super 16 millimeter film. Yeah, those were the ones where it was like, oh, okay, you know, I'm inspired to keep trying this. And those are actually on Amazon. I can leave a link to those. Samantha Adams, what is your favorite sci-fi ship of all time? The Firefly. Serenity, the Firefly. David Carlisle, hey, huge fan of the channel, recently started streaming cosplay and sci-fi prop builds and looking to start my own YouTube channel. Looking back, what advice would you give your past self as a content creator and just starting out? Well, the best advice is just to always be, you know, put something out every week. Just constantly be putting out material, and don't get bogged down in like, oh, I got to make this perfect video, and if you're not doing it yourself and other people are helping you and a person's not of it, just come up with an idea, a concept where you can film yourself, do it yourself, and just put out a video every week, you know. Some of my best videos came out that way, right? Where I was like, oh, I have nothing going on this week. And then I would just go to the dollar store and just shop and make a prop that week. And those were born out of sort of my commitment to put something out every week. So just, you know, be consistent. Perfect 7 Films. Do you have any future films for making a full-length feature film? Yeah. Basically, all my short films are proofs of concept. And anytime I make a short film, there is a feature-length version of that in my head. Venom2238, really love the DIY videos. Wondering if you have done sci-fi guns with LEDs into them. No, but I should, and that's another reason why I do that channel, because one day I'll convince myself to give that a try. But Punish Props, Bill Duran does a lot of cool stuff like that. Pure Metro, when will you make another blaster video? Better question, when will I not? Stay tuned, there's always a blaster video around the corner. Big Monkey 74, hey, have you done anything more with the Mandalorian build? Love where you were going, but you know, I love where you were going and you wanted to see the armor, but that never happened. Yeah, sorry about that. So the Mandalorian build was very exciting. I did the helmet, I did a blaster, I did the belt, and full disclosure, right? We're all friends here. I'm a big guy. And when it was time to do the armor, I was like, I feel fat. And I was like, well, I was losing weight, right? So I said, well, I'm not gonna build all that stuff and then just have it be giant and it just looks bad. So I was like, I'm gonna wait till I lose the weight. And then I lost the weight and then I never got back to it. But it's definitely on the shelf. But now that I'm 3D printing, I think I'm gonna start doing like spoilers and wrist guards and just start to creep up on it. But I got a great Mandalorian helmet from Core Geek. Oh my gosh. So definitely be doing that. Bella Ghost Family, could you try doing custom sci-fi outfit using a jumpsuit? And she goes on about, yeah, for sure. Actually, my next project that I'm working on, the main characters are going to have a jumpsuit. And one thing that's really cool currently is like The Expanse. They really got that jumpsuit costume dialed in. So check that out. And yeah, I will be doing that. 14 IceCog Black Scale. I scratch built a spaceship about a month ago, used rubber tire from a toy truck, and it's still tacky. Yeah, that'll happen. So lots of times with that is, if it's really important to you, what you could do is anything that's rubber like that, if you prime it first with a coat of like Plastidip, so it's like truck bed sealer, that'll cling to that, and then you can paint over that. Let's see, Mad Goy Roy. How much time will Dust take to get back to you after you submit your film, and how much do they pay you? And the film was out. All right, so he's talking about AERANGER, and AERANGER, aside from my channel, is on Dust, which Dust is amazing. Dust is a curated sci-fi short film channel, and they have like right now almost 2 million subscribers. Yes, it took them a long time to get back to me. You know, it's 2 million subscribers. Anybody who has a sci-fi film is submitting to that, and you know they have a very particular thing. That's why it's such a popular channel, because it's curated very well. So if they don't select you, you know, you're not going to get a rejection letter. You're just going to not hear from them. But you know, I would say, you know, if you feel you have something that would be good for them, send it, you know, because you never know. I was able to get in. I definitely don't take that for granted. And they're based out of LA, and I've been there, and they're really great people, and they really do care, and they really do watch everything. So hang in there. As far as the money, I don't want to really talk about that, but the money is not important, because it's always going to be a token amount, and what's the value is the eyeballs, right? That's on a channel. You know, on my channel, it probably has 300,000 views, but because they do non-exclusive agreements, on the Dust channel, I think I have, you know, we'll probably have 1 million views on that pretty soon. It's like 800,000 or something. So, right, the eyeballs are more valuable than a token amount of money. But yeah, they're really good people. Let's see. Vernon Whitehead Jr., number 1 tool on your wish list. A tool is definitely an airbrush. Next tool I need in my shop, airbrush. Studio Palatimia. I'm going to butcher all the names. I apologize now. Do you have help? Any people that help you in some form? How do you find them? Yes, of course I have help. So, you know, early on, mentors when going to school, people that are ahead of you doing something that you're interested in, and you approach them, and sometimes you form relationships and they help you. What I found recently is when I go to film festivals, especially now that I go to just genre film festivals, I'll meet fellow filmmakers, and we stay in touch, and you know, we'll help each other with our scripts and our projects, and just, you know, oftentimes not with actual physical help, but just mental, just talking each other through it. So yeah, definitely people supporting you. And at this stage in my life, I met them through film festivals, right? But in past stages, I've met them through you know, going to schools or signing up for like workshops. Workshops are a good thing, or like now they have like meetups and stuff like that. Just find a group of like-minded people. Even if you're shy, sit in the back of the room, and eventually you'll meet somebody. David Gonzalez, when did you start building props? Like really props would probably be in theater in college, but building props when I was a kid and didn't know I was building props. You know, making your own toys. Daniel McNeil, how do I scratch like my favorite DJ? Well, Daniel, practice. But I would recommend going online and just getting a cheap acoustic guitar and learning how to play acoustic guitar. Just Randy, I need to build a one-of-a-kind spaceship, and I don't have anything to start with. Where do I begin? Randy, yes, you have things. You have a medicine cabinet. You have an empty water bottle, shampoo bottles, medicine bottles, you know, recyclable plastic bottles, food containers. I have a video on that. We'll link to that video. Mike Smith, do you have a big movie or big idea that the smaller ones are building up to? Yeah, I think I mentioned that before. Anytime I do a short film, it's could potentially be a big film, but when we're producing things ourselves, it's more realistic to do that in a short format. KM, how are you today? Haven't watched your videos in a while. Do you recommend me? What do you recommend me to watch? And finally, congrats, you deserve more. You should watch the Film 101 stuff that I make. I have a whole playlist of that, and watch my new series, ZENITH Run. Okay, Planet Schlock. Who's your favorite director? Right now, probably Guillermo del Toro. Luna Felonius, how do you get your actors? Are they friends, or you put out a casting call? Well, both. You know, casting call, and I have a video where I go, you know, step by step through casting, link to that. Typically, I won't cast friends because that, I don't know, unless your friend is I do have some professional actor friends, but typically what I do is I'll do a casting, but it's all a long game, right? So Julia Morizawa, Bobby Breckenridge, these are women that I've worked with 3 times now, but originally I met them at a cold casting where it was like, okay, you know, I cast them because they were right, we became friends. Then as I go on, I tend to think of roles for them because I know what their abilities are, and it's like a self-perpetuating thing. But, you know, initially I think if you know actors, just do a casting because they're out there and they will build it and they will come. Let's see. Monica, loved it. Thank you, Monica. Brandon Lang, what advice should you give an amateur high school filmmaker who's in the development stage, micro-budgeted feature film? Like, what's the way to best start out? Okay, I have another video on that, and I call that the momentum budget. And lately I've been getting emails from high schools where, you know, they've been using the builds that I have on my channel to do productions, that's really awesome. I love that. And I'd love to do more of that. Brandon, so in the momentum budget, you know, you gotta have a script. Maybe you have an idea, but unless you write a script, it's not, you know, nobody's gonna take you seriously. So write that script and then start doing reading with your friends, and I go into detail. And in that momentum budget video, I take you straight through the whole thing. Lore Master of Skyrim, how would you go about creating a helmet like Mr. Freeze from Batman the animated series? If I'm thinking right, I would probably go on Amazon and find some kind of clear 5-gallon bucket, acrylic clear bucket, and then start from there. Scratch bashing, how did you perfect your epic chuckle? Well, if you go to my early videos, I do have an acting background and I do produce this kind of content for other people. And my early videos, I was very stiff, right? You know, like most people just starting out something, and it wasn't engaging. Hey, how you doing? Anthony Ferraro here with Create Sci-Fi. So as a device to get myself sort of in the right frame of mind to communicate to you all, I would say, okay, you know, action. How you doing? It's Anthony. So the intention was going to be that was going to be cut out, and then it would just kind of get me in that engaging mood where, you know, if you come on my video, I'm like, hey, how you doing? Anthony Ferraro. Today we're going to make some sci-fi. I think we're going to, like, who's going to watch that? But it was like, hey, how's it going? You know, it's definitely turned up a couple of notches from my normal life, but yeah, good question. That's why. Okay. DWAB, love your shows, have so many ideas, it's hard to start one. I find out in the middle it wasn't what I want, or it needs the life or the shape of what I want. What tips and what venue? You know, you just keep pushing through, and then, you know, don't be precious with anything. And if something doesn't work, you know, wrap it up and move on to the next thing. But just keep going. And, you know, if something didn't work out, it's okay to abandon it and start all over again. Sometimes, you know, you're forced to do that, right? You'll be working on something and it breaks down and you have to start all over. It usually comes out pretty good. So sometimes you just force yourself to do that. Knock knock. How do you usually make robots mechs? Every time I try, it usually ends up way too blocky. Well, I think, you know, by their nature, mechs are blocky. So if you wanted to create a mech that wasn't blocky, you know, that would start with the core materials that you select that are not blocky, right? So it's only gonna grow from whatever your core is, right? So if your core is kind of like a mechanical square engine blocky thing, it's probably gonna build out that way. But if you start with your core with like a, you know, with like a organic shape, yeah, I think that would do it. Logan Walker, what is your advice on making a sci-fi web series like Zenith Run? How could I go about doing that from start to finish? Well, you know, I have a lot of videos about how I made Zenith Run, but my advice is just do it. You know, shoot it on the phone. I have another film, Triangulate. You know, I just shot that in one afternoon on the phone just to do it. I wasn't like trying to make, you know, the next greatest thing. I was just like, I want to make something. Find out what your means are, and then kind of go backwards from there, and then make it the best you can within your constraints. But the worst thing to do is to just ponder it forever. Just get in there, and if it's not great, you just make the next one. All right? Okay, Ken Davis Scribbles, what's your favorite science fiction movie and why? I mean, you know, Star Wars, I think, is the obvious one, but aside from Star Wars, I don't know, that's tough. That's a really tough question. But I would say anything that's a saga, anything that's sort of, you know, like an epic adventure, I'm drawn to. But, you know, I don't have, I guess my favorite would be Star Wars, right? Not a very exciting, well, okay, Rogue One. Rogue One is definitely my favorite Star Wars film. And now, you know, the Mandalorian series is right up there. Galaxy Blaster. For a serious project of Star Wars caliber, perfect timing, would you recommend dollar store kit bashing or model kit bashing? I mean, if you really want to go that level, I would actually recommend 3D model kit bashing, and I have a video on that. Marvelous Maker, have you ever considered making an alien puppet for any of your projects? Yeah, kind of. I actually, for the proof of concept for Galactic Galaxy way back, the first iteration of the Tom robot was a puppet, and I'll see if I can dig up a picture of that my cousin Michael built. But yeah, not an alien puppet. And then actually I did write a project once where it was a puppet alien character, and then living in LA, when I reached out to like professional houses, that was way out of my budget. But yeah, for sure I would do that. I mean, yeah. Puppets could be a whole nother series. Okay. Mike Lathorpe. With blasters, what are the pros and cons of using something like a Nerf gun, then green or orange screening you? Okay, I think he's talking about the colors. I mean, the pros of using a Nerf gun are they're already kind of set up to be sci-fi, and with the paint treatment, they look really good, and that's why people use them a lot. The cons are people use them a lot, right? So I would find two that I like and cut them apart and glue them together, and I've done that before. So we have a video about that. Jedi Surf 26, what's your favorite sci-fi practical effects movie or show? Practical effects, maybe Space 1999. That's a good touchstone, or even Star Trek, right? The original Star Trek. Heath Lawson, how can I make a movie to help raise money for struggling families in America? You know, that's not sci-fi, but you just do it on your phone, film it on your phone, and then on your social media, share that film, and then do a link to some kind of organization or funding that is in line with what you're doing. But yeah, you could do that with your phone, and any of my filmmaking tutorials will help you to film something. You know, I have videos on filming with the phone. I would recommend doing that. Interview your friends and family. Las Vegas Next Exit. I would like to know, what are some of your favorite sci-fi movies and TV shows that you feel inspire your motion pictures? Definitely Firefly was very inspirational to me. When I was a kid, I just couldn't get enough of Buck Rogers. I was very inspired by that. And but the movies that really inspire me are not sci-fi. Probably the film that I reference the most is actually Clint Eastwood's, before he was Clint Eastwood, the director. He was still directing, but it wasn't like he is today. The Outlaw Josie Wales. That's my jam. Minor question, are you a cat guy or a dog guy? Tribble. Okay, Justin Wilson, what inspires you the most? Do you also have a job other than YouTube channel? What inspires me the most, I think, is the process. I just get inspired by being in the process of making stuff, and that typically will inspire me to go on to the next sort of component or step in that process of whatever that goal is. And then people you know, people inspire me when I see what they're doing and it's something I admire. But if somebody I know personally is good at something, that really inspires me. Let's see. To pay the bills right now, for 10, 20 years, I'm a video editor, which also allows me to do this channel because I'm self-sufficient. I think going back to somebody's question earlier about creating a channel, you need to be able to do this all yourself for it to be realistically putting it out once a week. If you have to rely on somebody else to edit for you, you'll have a very hard time of it. So yeah, video editor. Christopher Whittemore, have you ever seen Doctor Who? Of course. For me, 10th Doctor, David Tennant. Darcy Lone Billings, hello there. Trying to learn how to make CGI starships in Blender. Do you have any tips? Yeah, Blender. Blender's tough. So my tip is I can't use Blender. I use Element 3D. And that's because, you'll notice in my 3D printing videos, I use Tinkercad. I'm always looking for the easiest solution. Blender be awesome. But when I got to the point where I needed Blender, it's very difficult software. And typically what I do is if I have a result I need, and to get that result, I need to learn Blender, I'll learn Blender. So I was able to get the result I needed from using Element 3D, so I never learned Blender. So it's a roundabout way saying, if you want to learn Blender, don't just be like, oh, I'm going to teach myself Blender. Have something, a goal, something in mind that you want to complete that is necessary that you learn Blender to complete that. And you will learn Blender. That's my advice. Okay. Alex Rogan 8. In the history of existing content from all over the world, what would be your dream franchise to work on or be associated with? I mean, probably, I think, I was going to say Star Wars, but no, I think something coming out of the Weta Workshop. Definitely the Weta Workshop. I've moved to New Zealand and make stuff with them. Salim Rewab, has there ever been a KITBASH idea that you've had in the past was just too elaborate? I'd love to hear about the ideas that never made it to drawing board. I would say no, because I think I always just have an idea and I go towards it, and if it's too elaborate in the process, it's problem solving of how I can do that. I mean, I've certainly never not tried things, but I don't remember them because I think because I've moved on from that. But I would just say, if something seems outrageous, you still approach it and you figure out a way to make it not outrageous. I don't know if that helps you or answers your question. Good question. Thomas Does Things. Ever get into medieval stuff? I have no idea. This all started for me with Ren Fair. I started making leather things for Ren Fair. That got me making pretty much every week. And I do want to one day do a fantasy film. 44, or let's see, Galith. Have you started KITBASH and got stuck? I'm at that point. I have many things, but just can't come up with a thought to build. La la la. Yeah, sometimes you get stuck. Sometimes you got to walk away from it, or sometimes, yeah, I've definitely gotten stuck. And I've definitely gotten stuck and just pushed on and ruined it. But it's process. It's all part of the process. Sometimes, you just need to move on, and then one day you might pick it back up. But yeah, everybody gets stuck. Let's see. Macarakan, what got you into sci-fi budget filmmaking? I was making films like art house films early on. I was doing it for Mumblecore. I don't know if anybody's familiar with Mumblecore. Those are like no budget feature films that are mostly improvised. And I was trying to be like Jim Jarmusch. And I was making these films, but they weren't really moving the ball forward for me, and they weren't wowing anybody, and I wasn't fulfilled. And in my life, I always just watched sci-fi and fantasy. That's all I consumed. And then I kind of had a moment where I was like, why am I not making sci-fi? Well, it's because of all the peripheral things, the props, everything I cover on this channel. So once I said, well, you know what, I'm just going to do sci-fi, and I'll just make the props and costumes, and I'll learn the special effects myself. And that, and other people want to do that too, and I encourage you, but it's a journey, right? It takes a long time, but now that time's behind me, and I'm so glad. But That's what got me into budget sci-fi filmmaking. Was these are the kind of films I want to make. I was never making them because I couldn't afford it, and I just figured it out. And personally, I love stories, human stories of overcoming adversity. But just if I'm going to watch something or go to a theater, I want it to be framed in a fan, right? I don't want it to be two brothers working at a thrift store in downtown, wherever. I want it to be two brothers on a spaceship flying to some galaxy. That's just me. David Gonzalez, when did you start building your props? I answer that when I was a kid, and then props for film, really, that was in theater. So in my 20s. The major, when writing a script, how important is a reasonably thought out deep background? To me, I will outline just steps, beginning, middle, end, and then maybe some basic journey steps. But I like to, part of the exciting thing for me is the world, the characters unfolding as I write them and put them in situations. But, for some people that is important. But I think it's very important for me to set up the skeleton where I'm like, an outline of 1, 2, 3, 1 ABC, 2 ABC, 3 ABC, and then sort of follow just to keep some kind of structure. Otherwise, you end up just writing, character studies and interesting situations. But then as a film, people who just happen upon your film, they're not going to be interested in it. I learned that the hard way in those art house Mumblecore films. Matthew Payne, do you ever take packaging materials and turn them into props? No, I have not, but yes, I totally would. I just haven't met one yet. Matt Nelson, how about a basic tools video, if you ever any done this, going over the supplies you make and providing examples? Yeah, I've never really done that because I don't consider myself like an expert craftsman. I consider myself more of a DIY filmmaker who knows jack of all trades, master of none. So I think, I always feel weird about like any kind of like mastery videos, because it's like basically what I'm doing is I'm DIY and I'm just helping you out by sharing with you how I do it to make it more accessible. I'm not an expert, right? Like, oh, this tool is great because this is the blah, blah, that's just not what I do. But good question. Cygnus 10, when kitbashing, better to work from a plan or wing it? I like to have a basic idea of a shape, and then I end up winging it because you're kitbashing, right? So you don't have all the perfect elements. So you're going to have to adjust. So I would say a loose plan. Pentadeuce, how much paint do you use? In prop building, I use very minimal paint. I use a ton of primer, right? Primer I go through like crazy, but the actual paint, that goes a pretty long way. And I can't really tell how much I use because over the years I just have so much, there's probably like 100, eighth cans, half cans. But it's a good investment. I guess what I'm saying is because you'll have it. Hey, Julian Villacorta, I made some sci-fi fossils and wondering, can you mail them to me? Oh, thanks. Yeah, so if you go to createscifi.com, there's a way you can email me there, and then once you email me, we can talk back and forth and I can give you that information. That's how I did it with the 3D printing professor when he sent me those mechs. Number 1, wow, how'd you get that username? 1. How many square feet is your apartment? How many square feet is your workshop? I live in a small house now, but I used to live in a tiny apartment, and my workshop was in the kitchen, which I think in my moving video I show you that. But now I have a garage workshop. I don't know, this is probably like 20 by 20, and then my house is just a small cottage one bedroom house, but it's never enough room. But I do like having the garage workshop. Swanky, what's your favorite ship design from books or shows? Firefly, Serenity. Have you read the Wayfarer series? No, but now I feel like I'll have to check that out. Knight Rider 9000, I notice you use a lot of metallic paint, which reflects light on your props and models. Do you get around the hotspots, transparency issues when doing green screens? Yeah, this is actually a good question. And yes, it's a problem. So for example, in Galactic Galaxy, the one character is in head to toe silver, right? Fen, he's like a space werewolf. Head to toe silver, like mylar. And that reflected the green. And that was a big problem when you're keying it out. So what I ended up doing is all my things where it's metallic and I have that issue is you do 2 passes, right? So I'll do, and in Zenith Run I had to deal with it a little on one of the girls' shirts. It's basically I'll do a key, and then where I have all those transparencies, underneath it you double it up and you do a mask and you just cover out those things. It's time consuming, but it works out that way. And I've had that problem, and in my next project I was like, well, I'm not going to use metallic, and that was just silly because everything's metallic. So so it's extra work, but you can't, like you usually do, and then where those holes are, you just mask off the image and you fill in the holes, or you just don't use metallics. Nerdy McGamer, I want to know your inspiration for your movies. My family would love to make movies like yours. Inspiration typically is just, you know, if you think about what affects you, love, anger, humor, whatever it is, as long as it's personal to you, and it can seem really insider, but if it's personal to you, if you make a story about that, other people will relate to that, right? And then if you're saying your family would like to make movies like ours, you should make movie about what it's like to be in a family and family dynamic. Stalak03, do you speak any language apart from English? Sadly, no. And another cliche, and I barely speak English well. Okay, the Fat Ugly Toad Show, great name. Are you going to answer all these questions? I'm working on it, brother, working on it. Ben B, any advice for large set rubber monsters? Generally, well, yeah, that's tough. That if you're going to do like large sets of rubber monsters, that just needs to be a passion, and it needs to be like, this is what I'm doing for the next couple years, right? And you just got to dive into that. Like initially in Galactic Galaxy, I had these men that were snails, and they were in these giant snail suits. And I went to like a professional shop in LA. I talked about this earlier. And to make those suits was just thousands and thousands of dollars. So my advice would be do it yourself, and invest like, okay, this is what I'm doing for the next 2 years. But my advice would be, yeah, to really dig in, find a space that you'll have, hopefully, your garage or basement, and just work on it like, it's your, some people join a bowling league or, go, I don't know, or in some like choir or band, just make it be your thing. Okay, Kyle Olsen. What stores or parts or tools do you recommend for me to get just any moment to create some props from random filling? Parts of, yeah, I would say hardware store, dollar store, and the thrift store. Those 3 places, you'll find something. Mysteries TYTV. Can you please do another full costume build, like shirt, jackets, and pants? Yeah, I've done a few of those, and I'll certainly do another one. Basically, I just do those whenever I have a project that needs it, and then if I need to make it, I do that anyway. So in my next project, like I said, the character is going to have like sort of like a jumpsuit sort of thing. So yeah, I'll be doing that soon. TY guy, any recommendations on budget camera and sound equipment? Green screen. Yeah, I have videos on that. Like the lowest budget is filming on the camera phone is really fine for like a budget. Sound equipment, you have to get a good microphone, even if you can only afford a lav or like a Rode shotgun. Green screen, all these things, like I said, I'll link below to that. I do have like a green screen and then like inexpensive recording. I think I talk about like recording with the phone. And then tools, yeah, Dremel's good. But just basic tools, right, man? You just need like a knife, like a box cutter, some paint, some paintbrushes, some spray paint, some rulers, pencils, screwdrivers. And then you basically, what I do is probably every project I buy a new tool, you know, and then the years pass and then you have all these tools. So forget all that. Every project, just get a specific tool for that project and just start a collection. Robert Smith, why? You don't even answer your email from your website. Sorry, Robert. I think Robert's mad at me. Look, I get a lot of emails and I answer them all. So if I don't answer your email, that just means somehow it didn't get to me. I'm answering all these questions. So the thing is, you know, I try. I definitely try. And as the channel grows, you know, I get more people reaching out to me. I always try to communicate because, you know, I don't exist without you. So Robert, I apologize. Sometimes what works too is people will message me from the Facebook, the Create Sci-Fi Facebook, and I'll get those. Or if you go to the community section in the YouTube channel, you know, I regularly post in there. You can ask me something in there. And like I said, if I didn't answer your email, it definitely was somehow, it didn't get to me, because typically I answer those. So sorry, Robert. Joseph Keegan, for all us beginners out there, what are some good skills, best practices for staying focused and on task, not getting distracted or losing hope, getting up off our asses and actually doing stuff? Well, yeah, you have to look at it like the long game, right? There's no short, you can't be short-sighted. You can't, because it's hard and it's a lot of money and it's a lot of disappointment, but then, you know, the highs are awesome. So my advice to beginners and a good skill is to, you know, slow and steady wins the race. If you don't have the money or you don't know how to do something, you could just quit. Or you could be like, okay, you know, over this course of a year, I'm going to save a little bit of money and I'm going to teach myself Blender, right? And before you know it, a year is going to pass and you did that or you didn't. You know, it's that simple. So, and as far as not getting distracted or losing hope, you're not going to get distracted and lose hope if you really are passionate about your project and you pace yourself, right? So if make sure it's something you're passionate about. And that's why I started making sci-fi, right? To loop back to that earlier question. Because when I wasn't making sci-fi, I was trying to be Jim Jarmusch or David Lynch. It wasn't authentic. It wasn't a true passion. But once I clicked into sci-fi, it didn't matter because I was going to do that anyway. So if it took a year, it took a year, you know? So pace yourself long term and just slow and steady. Ethan Aho, Kirk or Picard, Captain Malcolm Reynolds, SFC films, space helmets. How do we make cheap but believable space helmet? Would love to see tutorial on that. Well, SC Films, I have, I think 3, maybe 4 of them. I made a bunch of space helmets, and I'm always going to be making more. Oh, that's made out of like a construction helmet. And I've made a bunch of these. Now, if you're talking about like a proper like space helmet, like the Martian or like a NASA helmet, I'll probably never do that because I tend to be leaning more into fantasy. But yeah, I do like a lot of helmet builds. I did one with a bicycle helmet and a Halloween mask, and I'll link to those below. But yeah, always making helmets. And now I'll probably eventually do something with 3D printing because, I don't know, helmets are awesome. Al Butland. Because of the world's lockdown, are you working on any projects at this time, and what inspires you? Yeah, I mean, I'm writing. So, you know, I talk a lot about like, you got to write first. And, you know, now, you know, work has been very slow. I've been making these videos. I did the series on 3D printing. So I'm just really focused, hyper-focused on writing. So I'm writing my next short and rewriting. Now, what I tend to do is like Galactic Galaxy, AERANGER. I just did Zenith Run. So my next film will be like a cinematic, more of a dramatic film rather than sort of like a campy sci-fi. So my new sci-fi film, I'm during these times where everything's shut down, is, you know, I'm just focused on writing. It's hard, but it's a really good time to do that. And then what inspires my projects, typically, like I said before, just something that I'm thinking about, and then how do I frame it in a film? How do I address it? Either sort of deal with a conflict I'm having, or just sort of expand on something I've been thinking about. And then these are from Instagram. Ellis is great. He's asking me to look at a video. Then he says miniature sci-fi cities, and he's talking about practical effects. And then if I'm ever going to do a miniature set, and that's something that I really want to do. So I did the kit bashing in the spaceships, and then this next film that I just talked about that I'm writing is I really want to do as much of it as possible practical. And one thing I was thinking, there's just one establishing shot, and I was thinking about doing a miniature. Now back to another question, when people was talking about, somebody was asking me about collaborations. I know that when I did Galactic Galaxy, Josh Spooner, who did a lot of the props on that, helped me out with those. He does miniatures, so I have a little bit of a relationship with him. So I'll reach out to him, and I definitely want to try doing a miniature for my next film. Like I said, it's a establishing shot, and I want to see if I can do that. But that's very much, I think, in line with kit bashing, and definitely something that I'd like to try. Obsidian Lagoon Props. How old were you when you made your first film? My first film I made was like a Super 8 film in high school. And then some friends of mine, we made like a video on a VHS recorder. But as far as like proper film, I think I was maybe 29 or 30, and that would be those clown films that I referenced earlier. But before then, I was with a group called the House of Borax, and we were making music videos. But that was in the early 90s, so we were actually shooting them on Super 16 film and then transferring them to video. And I was sort of like a part of a collective of people that did that. At that time, I wasn't the filmmaker. I was more like the creative person with ideas. And that was kind of like how I got involved in filmmaking. And then from there, I made the clown films. So yeah, like 29 or 30. And I had, prior to that, 10 years of being in the theater. So yeah, long, diluted answer, but yeah, the macabre. Hey Anthony, is there one show going up that really influenced you more than any other? What show influenced me more than any other? I don't know. To me, it's an amalgamation, and for me, it's these films from like the late 70s, early 80s. It's the Borman's Excalibur, Outlaw Josie Wales by Clint Eastwood, and then Lester's The Three and Four Musketeers. Those films really, those influenced me more than any other, and I continue to watch them. And then my favorite movie director, like I said earlier, now I think it's Guillermo del Toro, and I just think because he ticks all the boxes for me. Like, he makes really emotional, dramatic, intelligent, compelling, riveting stories, but he frames them in sci-fi fantasy, you know. And I think for me the perfect example would be, you know, it's very different to watch the Blade movies when they're you know, the ones that he directed as opposed to didn't, you know. You know, and I just, you know, like just recently, like Shape of Water, you know what I mean? Or like the Strain, which is something he just produced, just like a, you know, like a episodic TV show, but it just was just a little, had something because he was involved. So yeah, I really like him. Chris is better than you. What's your favorite prop that you have made? I don't really have a favorite, but this guy, whoa. This guy, I think, kind of kicked it all off for me. I was, you know, people ask me like, how do you just get started? And, you know, many, many years ago, I had the idea for Galactic Galaxy, and I was just trying to figure out how to do it. And I went on Amazon, and I just got this mask, and I added things to it, and then I did like a dry brush on it, which is really all I really understood at the time. And then from this, I built a whole trooper costume, and then that just sort of like, I never stopped after that. So I don't know if that's my favorite prop, but that's probably the most important one. Quiff DNL, have you bought an airbrush? No, I need to buy an airbrush. Vig Fuss A, what's your favorite spaceship? Firefly. Scenes Stridge, what would you say is your most out there conspiracy theory? I'm not a conspiracy theory person, but I'm definitely into ancient alien theory. The truth is out there. Devil May Care Productions. In one of your earlier videos, you talk about writing in the coffee shop. What it is about the coffee shop that gives you comfort to write there? That's a good question. So the coffee shop for me forces me to focus and not be distracted, which might seem a little counterintuitive to people, but what I'll do is put in headphones and just not music with lyrics, usually just like, now there's so many like ambient, like, you know, forest, or even like, this will be nerdy, but I'll tend to like, it'll be like 8 hours of sci-fi ambience, and I'll just sort of tune in. And the thing is, if you're focused, it's kind of like meditation, right? It's like, yeah, all this stuff's going to be going on around you, but you know, I made an effort to go to that coffee shop. I left my home. I'm plugged in. I'm here. I got my drink. I don't know anybody, and I'm just there to write. And I find that it really helps me to be more productive, right? And it kind of puts you know, a physical structure to like a mental exercise. And it's, you know, it's like a ritual, you know, so I know that I'm there with my laptop, and I know, you know, I have it burned in my subconscious. That's what I'm there to do. And also too, just side note, many years ago in another lifetime, Al Gore had a TV station called Current TV, and I worked on that show. I was a producer editor on that show, and that was a very exciting show. Lots of cool people, and we were all in it together. But it was like my department, there was maybe 20 of us, and we were all on the floor together, and we were editing on that floor and writing and pitching and all that. So I guess you would call it a bullpen. So I had to learn how to focus in that environment. And that's one of those things where you don't realize, like in the big picture, that was a really great sort of thing that I had to learn, right? And later, when, you know, when I studied things like I studied, like, you know, meditation, there is an aspect of meditation where it's not going to be in a Zen garden with running water and birds chirping. You know, it's going to be your neighbor's car alarm going off, and you need to learn to quiet your mind and focus on the work, right? So yeah, writing in coffee shops, that's how I get it done. That was it. Well, I hope I got them all. If I missed any of them, I apologize, but I really tried to get them all. It's a pretty long video, but I wanted to answer everybody's question because you took the time to engage, and I wanted to hopefully give you an answer that's, you know, helps you out or satisfied you, or just, you know, made you think, oh, okay. Well, as always, I hope you enjoyed this video. You found it useful. Please like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. Obviously, I love to read the comments. And be sure to check out the merch shop. We got the hats and the shirts. Buying those really helps the channel. And like I said, if I did speak about a specific video that I already made, I'll put a time code link in the description below so you can check out that video. Well, thanks for playing along, and remember, I'm just here to help make sci-fi.